camel noises. Camel noises. Camel noises.
Well, that was a long nap. Hiya everyone, it's your friend Callie, and well, you may have noticed, I haven't exactly been, uploading a lot. The short of it is that I got sick, and if we are being really super honest right now, I don't feel better. And it's just all made it so that I can't set up a camera and record like I used to be able to, but I miss you, and I miss making videos. So I've been trying to think of a way to redirect and make it work. So, okay, just stay with me here, okay? Ta-da! I made a pngtuber model. This is much more accessible way for me to set up than a camera would be. I made this and all of its various moods. Hold on, we shall... Oh, look, I'm so cute. Oh, rah, I'm mad now. Oh, I was scared or something, shocked, I don't know. I forgot what this one is, and I'm so sad. Okay, yeah, I made them all, and I got a little help along the way, but I figured it out, mostly. You may also see me using a live 2D model sometimes. That model is an inexpensive one that I got from a creator named Azuyani on Etsy. Yeah, Etsy of all places. Anyway, I am planning on basically taking some of the things I was doing while vlogging and turning it into more like story time, chatting type content like this. As it turns out, when you get really, really sick and you stop really being able to leave your house, vlogging me sitting on a couch, drawing, playing games, reading, watching YouTube videos, it just didn't seem like something anybody would find interesting. But I still want to reach out, I want to give updates on my world and connect in some way. So this feels like a good way to pivot. It's all about rolling with the punches, which is basically how I've been living my life for the past, we won't talk about how many years. So speaking of changes, as an update, I want to talk about some of the changes that I've been working on in my reframing period. As I said, I got sick, and when you have a disability like mine, it can be kind of scary because you never know what that's going to mean. Maybe I'll be sick and bounce back real quick, or maybe I'll get sick and it takes months or years to feel better. Sometimes I might never get better. I've been working on coming back for about a year now, but then I suddenly lost a huge chunk of my vision, and that set me back by a while. It's still not fixed, but I'm learning to see beyond see beyond's probably not the greatest way to say this, but see around the block vision. How about that? When that happens, though, you have to be flexible and work around it. You have to figure out how to keep going. Time doesn't stop, not even when you're sick. This last time came at the worst possible time. I was deep in the trenches of grieving my mom. People are there for you in the beginning of death, but once the dust settles and things are calm, you're kind of on your own. And for me, it takes me a while to really process and navigate feelings. So right about the time when I got sick is also when I started working through all that. I was already depressed, and then my condition worsened. And my symptoms, obviously, they got worse as well. That meant that I lost partial use of my hands and my mobility drastically decreased. It becomes this feedback loop because the reality of my worsening condition made me feel bad. And that made my depression worse, and the worsening of my depression made me feel worse, and it made the pain and exhaustion I deal with worse, which makes me feel bad and more depressed, and so on and so on and so on. It can go on and on and on forever. And maybe you've dealt with something like that before. Maybe you're dealing with chronic illness or sudden injury, or you're finding yourself newly disabled. Apparently there's a bunch of you guys joining the club now because of long COVID. Whatever it is, you might be wanting to break that feedback loop, and I have been struggling with it for a while, but I think maybe I've figured something that might help. This is how I trick my brain into thinking I'm not useless. Now, disclaimer, I realize that I'm not useless. And if you're down there in the comment section just about to be like, Callie, don't call yourself useless, stop it. I know. But just because you logically know something doesn't mean that you emotionally do. And unfortunately, the depression feedback loop is rooted in the feeling that you are useless. So step 1 isn't telling myself that I'm a wonderful person who adds so much light and life to so many people. No. Step 1 is to get real honest. What can you actually physically and realistically do? Keep the house clean? Make meals for you and your family? Make art on a regular basis? Write daily? Read daily? For me, I couldn't commit to anything but reading. Cleaning and cooking is too much for me with my limited physical ability, and I need to rely on too much help to accomplish those. And honestly, there was too much room for failure. The same with making art or writing. Both are very mentally tiring, and when your body is struggling to exist, your brain isn't exactly in the best shape either. And it's important that you pick something that you know you will have a low chance of failing at to begin with. So you have to be honest with yourself and your abilities, even if that's hard. Make sure you aren't putting yourself in a position to bite off more than you can chew. Because sure, on a good day, I can do a lot of things. But what about your middays? What about your bad days? You need to be able to think of what you can realistically commit to. Step 2. Pick an activity that fits within your ability limits. For me, reading became my thing. At the time of recording this, I have been on a reading streak for over 500 days. In 2023, I read 74 books total. I'm not certain, but I think that reading might be my special interest now. One reason I picked reading is because at the time, I was watching a lot of TikTok. My partner was working nights still, so I was going to bed alone. I have some sleep anxiety issues, so I would open up TikTok, watch until the feeling of passing out would slowly start to trickle into my consciousness, and then I'd go to sleep. But that meant I was watching TikTok for hours. Do not recommend, by the way. I was having issues focusing after a while, and then reading large blocks of text was almost impossible. Literally, my eyes could not track the words on a page. It was rough, so reading seemed like a good way to retrain my broken brain, and I noticed some benefits that came along with it. I felt accomplished, I guess is the best way to put it. I had something that I knew I needed to do every day at some point in the day, and it didn't matter if I only read 1 page or I read 200. I knew I needed to read that day. I'd watch my calendar fill up with my reading days, and it became important to me to keep the streak going. The feeling of accomplishment there, it started to chip away at that negative feedback loop I'd been on. Step 3, do the thing! Okay, so literally that's just what it is. Just keep it up. Do it every day. And then once you start to feel better, reevaluate. Look at your abilities again. See if anything has changed. For me, that meant that I needed to add more tasks, so at this point I have 3 major projects that I've committed to. First is that I still read every day. Next, I do a little French studying every day. If you didn't know, I'm American, and I moved to France in 2019 because my husband is French. And as it turns out, immigration to France is just so much easier than immigration to America, especially with me being disabled and unable to work. When we did this though, we had this idea that we would go back to America soon, and honestly things have changed, and that's just not in the cards anymore. And yet my French skills have not got any better. We're too poor for French lessons, and there's some inaccessibility issues in the French immigration process. Well, in French culture, honestly. And maybe I'll get to that in a longer form sometime later. But anyway, all that's to say is I struggle with the language. But I figure if I make a solid attempt to do a tiny bit of French study every day, that's better than doing nothing. So I read books. Books made for children. but chapter books made for children, which is much better than the picture books I was on last year. And I also have a pretty nice streak in Duolingo. I know I'm not going to become fluent like this, but it's absolutely better than doing nothing. And I spent 3 years doing nothing, so this has to be better, right? And honestly, I do notice that, like, I can keep up with conversations that I overhear a little bit. Not enough, but like a little bit to like know more of the gist of what's being said. And I order for myself at restaurants sometimes, which you could never get me to do. Like even a year ago, I probably wouldn't have done that. So it's getting better. And it's also something that has definitely helped to trick my brain. Next, I have also committed to long-term crochet projects. Towards the end of 2022, people in a knitting crochet group that I was in, they were all talking about these things called temperature blankets. A temperature blanket is a simple 365 row blanket where each row's color corresponds with the average daily temperature for that day. So colder temperatures are usually darker blues and warmer temperatures go all the way to red, kind of like those weather map colors. I thought they were cool, but I didn't really feel compelled to make one. Like, do I really want to see the reality of global warming manifested onto a blanket that I stitched with my own hands? No, not really. Then I saw some people taking that concept and using it for other things that someone can track on the daily, like mood and exercise. So I got to thinking, what is something that I do every day that I could track? If you guessed reading, you get 10 points. Congratulations. So I made a book blanket in 2023, and now I can be cuddled up in the reality of all the books I read last year, manifested into the stitches that I made with my own hands into this super cool blanket. I had enough fun with this that I'm making another book tracking project this year that's going pretty well. And that's the, 3 simple steps, but like all things, there's one caveat that I think that we really need to discuss. It's just a big thing to remember that you need to give yourself grace. Are you feeling too sick to do your task that day? That's okay. Just take a few pause days. Maybe you need to take away a task or reevaluate the skills that you have. It's okay to take a break if you need it. Over the summer, it was way too hot to try to crochet. So I recorded the rows and I played catch up in the autumn months. There's been a couple of times where I just couldn't get my brain to work with French. So I took a pause day, and I just went back to it the next day. The idea is to give your brain things to do, not find another way to punish yourself for not meeting expectations. So if you aren't meeting expectations here, that means it's time to create a new expectation. If I ever find myself not being able to read every day, then that's fine. I would just have to reevaluate. And maybe it's more about reading every week, or maybe reading can no longer be my thing. And I will be really sad when reading is no longer my special interest. But that doesn't mean that there isn't something else out there for me. That's pretty much it though. Just find a reason to get up in the morning, even if it's something as simple as reading a book. Be realistic with it and adjust to balance it so that it remains interesting and challenging, but isn't too much so that you set yourself up for failure. And give yourself grace and take breaks and start again. And that's how I tricked my brain into thinking that I am not useless. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope that this new format works out. I'm planning to make more with this kind of vibe, so if you're into it, consider liking and subscribing. But hey, I'd love to hear from other people as well. So tell me, have you ever been stuck in a depression spiral like this before? What are some things that have helped you emerge out of it? And if you're still in there, I hope you find something that keeps you grounded, brings you joy, or otherwise makes it easier for you. Anyway, that's it. Take care and see you soon. Bye bye bye. That is the theme song that I'm gonna pick later. Ba, ba, da, da, da.